On this episode, I'm in the bright lights of New York City. Big Jim's on tour to interview the new owner of the Natal Sharks, an outspoken individual who's a bigwig on Wall Street. It's the wonderful, it's the powerful Marco Masotti. Well, it's class to be chatting to you, Marco, especially in your home. It's not a town, it's a city of New York. I'm here with my wife on our 10-year wedding anniversary. And like you said, we've said it many times, we've made it. We made it 10 years. A lot's happened.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think that's what we were looking for. So more so to her than me.
It's a good city to celebrate in.
Yeah.
It's one of the great cities of the world. Hopefully we'll see more rugby in it.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, we can get onto the MLR. I wanted to chat about you personally and your relationship with rugby. Now, to quote a quote of a paper that I initially stumbled across when you came into my life via social media, into many rugby fans' lives via social media, the quote was, "I was blessed with a rugby brain, but not a rugby body." That's how it started. So let's start with that. Why rugby?
I don't know. I just love the sport. Just love the sport. It's hilarious that if people talk about the sport and how to make it more entertaining. I mean, you were forward. They talk about making it more fluid and less about scrums and that type of thing. And there is no other sport, right? You got 8 guys on 8 guys smashing into each other. That scrum is what's going to sell the sport. I mean, it's fantastic.
That's the South African in you speaking. Listen, straight to it.
But it's fantastic. Look, I love backline play. My favorite player growing up was Nas Botha. I love fly halves. So the quarterback, you can call them the quarterback of rugby. I just love it. My father took me to my first rugby game in 1976 when South Africa played the All Blacks, and I was just hooked. That rivalry just hooked me. And if you live outside of your country, like a lot of South Africans have done over the years, one of the ways I came to the United States about 30 years ago, one of the ways you remain connected with your heritage, connected with South Africa, is through rugby. So I saw it for the first time. I wasn't a very good rugby player. I said that quote because I know I don't have the body for it, sitting next to you. But I just really love the game. I love the intricacies of the game. I love some of the thinking behind the game. I love American football. Let me say that. It's like watching toy soldiers. Every person has a role. Every player is sophisticated. And I've started to think about rugby in a very similar way. Can the game evolve, to the next level of its professional growth in a way that's very exciting?
Yeah, because I think your introduction to rugby was the very best introduction. I say that if you're going to a Springbok All Blacks match, it doesn't get any bigger. The haka, the number one sport in South Africa, the South African rugby story. Francois Pienaar, a good friend of yours.
South Africa winning.
Exactly.
That game.
Would it have been different? Do you think South Africa? Well, I think as a country it would have been different if they hadn't won that game. Am I right in saying that? How big was it?
It was massive. It was absolutely magical. I have a little bit of a connection to that. I'm going to bring that to Nelson Mandela in New York, because when Nelson Mandela, which starts the Sharks' journey, when Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990, he did this massive trip to New York. They had a ticker tape parade, like when the New York Yankees win. It was amazing. I had just come to the United States and then to New York, and saw that Mandela had come to my law firm now called Paul Weiss to meet with someone who became my mentor, Ted Sorensen. And Mandela had asked Ted to set up something called the South Africa Free Elections Fund, which raised American money to help to help finance voter education in South Africa for the first democratic election. And the first head of the South Africa Free Election Fund was a guy by the name of Vincent May, a very prominent expat South African businessman, who's one of the co-owners now of the Sharks, and who became Siya Kolisi's mentor, and who assisted with scholarships for Siya to attend school, and now his mentor in life and friend and everything else. So those little, it goes from Mandela to Francois to Siya, and the thread are these wonderful people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Vincent.
How does someone go from Wall Street, and you look at your backstory, and it's probably becoming more prevalent now in the media because you've bought a majority share of Natal Sharks in Durban?
Yes.
How does one go?
The Sharks.
The
Sharks.
The Sharks. That's it.
That's it.
Maybe
it could be. I'm saying that for a reason, and we'll get to it a little later. It's the Sharks. Maybe the Durban Sharks. One day, I think most sports teams, right, are identified with a town. There's the New York Giants. I think part of your responsibility, right? A sports team is connected to a place, with a fan base, and I think there's great benefit, branding it with the place that it's from.
Yeah, absolutely.
But right now it's the Sharks.
Yeah. Well, I know why it's called the Sharks. I was in Durban and I was swimming around July, and me and my mate Brett Deacon, who's the forwards coach at Leicester, he's not a great swimmer. I mean, I was a pretty decent swimmer, and we're swimming out to the shark nets in Durban, and there was a guy lying on his back like Castaway, like Tom Hanks. Don't you just feel free, lads? And I didn't realise the shark nets were probably only 400 metres away, and my mate Deeks is struggling. The water's all frothy or whatever, and it shows you at 19 years old, you don't give a shit. And he was like, "What are you doing out here?" I said, "Oh, we're looking to swim to the shark nets. We said before we go home we want to swim to the shark nets and back." He said, No. There's no shark nets out today, boys." He said, "It's the sardine run, the start of the sardine run."
Oh my God. They were infested with sharks.
Infested with and we are, I swear to God, we're out where the shark net should be. And my mate Deeks can't swim. And me and the castaway, let's call him Tom, brought him back to shore, and he nearly died, nearly drowned. And then as we got back to shore, he got stung by a jellyfish. So we're weeing on his leg.
Look, it's an appropriate name. Great name, great brand, great city.
Yeah. And I mentioned the Wall Street thing. It's an easy thing to go down when you watch the movies, especially recently. I mean, it just looks like a savage environment to be in. Like, it just looks crazy. So when you take on a rugby team, this is all right. The drama, like, no problem. Is there a part of that, do you think, with your backstory and being in New York and how fast a life that probably has been in a law firm as well, when you look at the landscape of rugby, and people listening to this are thinking, rugby's in a hell of a state at the minute. But you've just invested in a team in probably the worst state rugby's been in from a financial standpoint. The stuff that we mentioned at the start of the show around concussion. Look, is this nothing to you?
So, let's start with sports generally, right? I come from a place, and I've grown up on Wall Street with a number of clients, mostly in the private equity area, that become enormously successful. They've become the new masters of the universe of the city and country. They started to buy sports teams. One of my clients purchased the Milwaukee Bucks. They won the NBA championship last year, not this year. And a guy named Mark Lagery. I could have co-invested in that deal. I think they bought the Bucks. Our law firm did the deal. They bought the Bucks for something like, $450 million, and now it has, a value exceeding $2 billion.
How much?
$2 billion. Okay, now that's its value, right? You realize the value of a sports team, generally not on an ongoing basis, but when it's sold to someone else, right? And then I have a very close friend who bought the Florida Panthers, ice hockey, massive business, in this country. and around the world. So it starts with there and seeing what the potential is, seeing what some of my clients are doing, and then rugby's struggling. But sometimes when there's I'll call it a distress situation, it's not. Rugby's a massive business with a massive following. It's got something like 500 million fans in 88 countries, and it's one of the fastest growing sports in the United States. Yes, it's you could look at it another way, which is it's a great time to get in. The snow globe has been shaken, and it's going to take a little time to settle. But if you're investing in a South African rugby team that's about to play in Europe, you're effectively investing in a different type of labor market with a massive talent pool, and that comes with European exposure. Well, I mean, it seemed like a great deal to me.
Did you know that was going to happen when you invested?
At the time we were doing it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What happened was I had a good friend and former client who was an independent board member at the Stormers, and so I looked at the Stormers as an opportunity, and I wanted to bring these people from other sporting codes to the sport of rugby, and also there's some very prominent. I mean, it's astonishing how well some South Africans have done in the United States. So I wanted to bring some of them back to South Africa. Everyone wants to help. I had people reaching out to me, help in some way, and so I formed a little consortium. Effectively, we thought it would be the Stormers, but I had to go down there and see how hard that was, and ended up at my team growing up, called the Sharks.
That's amazing when you think about how things can happen like that. You were going to buy the Stormers. Stormers were on their knees. They were going to fold, weren't they? Now they've won the URC.
I know.
The Sharks will get there, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You had to bring that up.
Yeah, I'm a Sharks fan.
Okay, good.
I am. I'm also a John Dobson fan. I like him.
No, he's wonderful, and he did. It's a wonderful franchise. The fans are wonderful. They also tap into just an enormous talent pool, and it really, based on where they were, and I have a little bit of insight into where they were, and the fact that they won, and it's amazing. I mean, that competition, I don't know if you watched that final, or saw how that competition ended, how close it was, and the Bulls going to Leinster, the Bulls luckily beating us with a drop kick in Pretoria. But it ended up very exciting, and I thought a really, really wonderful first season for the league.
Yeah, it was class. I commentate on the URC for Premier Sports, and hand on heart, did not see the Bulls coming anywhere near it. Like I thought, physical, stereotypical South African team. This is at the start, right?
Yeah.
I thought the Sharks, with the players that you had, Mapimpi, obviously Sia Khaleesi being the headline ones, there's obviously a load more, but them being the two kind of stars in South African rugby of late. And then obviously the Stormers, because it's the Stormers, and many people hadn't probably heard about the financial issues. They probably wondered why they'd lost players like Khaleesi and other players to Europe, Eben. And
Peter Staff,
yeah. He went to Japan, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So you're looking at it, you're thinking, well, Stormers, maybe. And then as the season progresses, and it was a tough start for the teams coming in during COVID, and then towards the end of the season, the run-in that we had, people are thinking, actually, one of these teams on their given day could beat Leinster in a final. Oh no. The Bulls go, and you talk about awakening a tournament that needed waking up.
Yeah.
We've had the Pro 10 or whatever it was, the Pro 12, the Pro 14, and then the whole talk of the South African franchises coming in last season, and then there was this Rainbow Cup stuff that never took off, and we're thinking, what's going on with this URC? There's music, there's Jay-Z, there's Rock Nations. We're like, look, this has got the recipe to be something shit. Yeah. It really has, unless it's real. It's the real deal from the South African teams coming in. And my goodness me, you look at the back end of that, what the Bulls did to Leinster and two South African teams.
I mean, the way people are talking about it, even on the ground, the players. It's you got another big league in Europe, right? This is really where the game's coming. You got another big league in Europe, Premiership, top 14, another URC. It's going to be a great, Heineken Cup next year. You got 3 big leagues, a lot of the big players from around the world playing in them. I think it bodes well.
You got a big player coming back. We're going to flip flop there.
Yeah,
because your mum wanted him
big
in the team.
Big is right.
Yeah. Ebenezer. Did your mum genuinely want? I mean, any mum would want, or daughter, son, husband, wife,
mom, and extended female members of my family.
He's a real man.
He's wonderful. He's just, he's one of the greatest rugby players on the planet.
Absolutely.
And I can tell he's gonna, he also brings a work ethic and everything else. He's got a very good relationship with some of our players like Sia. They're close personal friends. It's going to be fun seeing him in a Sharks jersey.
And with the dynamics of the URC and bringing someone like Eben in and Sia and Mapipi, these big names, the worry was with the way that the season could be so congested with the international, South Africa still being in the championship, another layer with Europe now, the travel element. So as an owner, what's the expectation of getting these players out regularly? And I chatted to Eben, I know you've seen the feature that I did with him, and he's saying that, and I agree, and I actually think it's too many, that 25, 26 games, maximum a season, is probably the limit.
Yeah.
So you put the South African test in that, you put a World Cup into that, the URC, the European Cup. Obviously, not without speaking for you, but I imagine that's such a big competition.
Curry Cup, yeah.
Curry Cup as well, of course.
Yeah, it's taking. We're starting to plan now. Look, we need bigger squads. We have a great talent pool. It provides opportunities for other players. It's a very, you need to be very careful and strategic about it. Bringing the more experienced, big name player, not letting that. I'm also in a human capital intensive business. I'm in a law firm. Okay, it's astonishing sometimes, how similar it is.
Spreadsheets.
It's about people, and keeping them engaged and involved and growing and developing. And the hope is that those senior players who will be missing from time to time, help with creating the talent pool of the next group that follows them, and we create a culture of winning in doing that. But it is a fine balance. It's going to require a lot of planning. Next year's going to be hard, and we have to carefully manage the players through it. Just in terms of how much rugby they play and that type of thing to get the best out of them. But it just requires planning, hard work, being smart, just like it does in other human capital intensive businesses.
So you investing into the Sharks, we're not going to call them the Sharks. What we're going to call, because we can change the name here.
There's only one Sharks rugby team on the planet.
Well, you could, I don't want to say, in the URC. You can say,
I'm
with you now.
If you're building a global brand, how can there be more than one?
Well, Simon Orange is hating on me at the minute. The Sale Sharks owner, he's hating on me at the minute. So at the minute,
the Sale owner.
Was it you? Did you tweet about that or not? Did I see someone else saying, "Where are the Sharks in Sale and Manchester"? Was it you tweeting about it?
It was.
It was.
I was just trying to have fun. Rugby also needs a little bit more controversy.
Oh, love it. Here we go.
Okay, Marco. You got to stir the pot every now and then.
It's a great point. It's a great point, though.
I think it is. What are we going to do? We're going to be in the Heineken Cup and playing against, it's in our mutual interest to have different brands. And if you talk to, rugby players around the world, we are the Sharks. You
need to kick the door down if you play in Manchester and say, "Show me your Sharks. Where are they?" Mm-hmm. Then they can't.
I looked it up. They had some. I think they got a river there. It was like I'm trying to remember the name of the fish in the river, but I suggested something. In just trying to be helpful, something like a big frightening animal like a tuna.
Yeah, that's not doing it for me.
That's not doing it for you?
No.
Okay, well, we can think of something else.
But the thing is, now we're pissing on the flames of Leicester Tigers just won the Prem,
There's
Bristol
no
Bears.
Tigers in Leicester.
Yeah, yeah, there should be. There should be now. My goodness me. So you invest into a club. So what are the expectations as an owner? Is it winning stuff or is it return on investment? Is it both? And I think the big question, and something that's bugging me at the minute, and many other people listen to me, and Mark Evans, who I've had on the podcast, and Simon Cohen, is there a return on investment?
Mm-hmm.
So do people invest in rugby now? Do you invest in the Sharks? I know you love it. You can hear that in your voice. From a business standpoint, or is it, which I think, and again, I hope you're going to put me wrong, you invest in it because you love it more than an investment. So therefore, you want to bring Eben back to South Africa. Cheslin Colby, I'm sure there's conversations ongoing with him to come back to South Africa at some point. Or from a business standpoint, you're like, no, I need to get to a certain point. There needs to be a return in a few years.
It doesn't have to be one thing. What I learned is all of the things that I was interested in, the stepping stones, in my life, came together around rugby. I love the sport. I want to make a contribution in South Africa. I love mentoring, community development, media and entertainment. And so, yes, it does, at the end of the day, provide lots of different types of interests. But I am investing my own money. I am the biggest investor in the Sharks. I have asked clients and some real investors to join me in this endeavor. I think we got it at a good price. I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth. So I think I also made a good business decision. It's not purely romance and it's not reckless. I think, the platform of rugby, the platform of Sharks, where they are playing in Europe, the residual businesses around sport and rugby and media, I think I'll make a return on my investment. And, hopefully ride the wave of what I think's coming next, for rugby. I don't want to be, I used it when I first, and I think it is important to speak to players and get players, because they actually have a lot of ideas. We call it Players First now at the Sharks, and we have, mentoring program where each player gets a foreign mentee and a local mentee, and they just do a Zoom like once a month and just, talk about life and that type of thing. But I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from the players. I've learned a lot, from Sia Kolisi. I think, he has some great ideas. I think there's a lot of opportunity for growing the sport. And when I speak to Sia, and one of the reasons why I came to the Sharks, it was about he loves Liverpool soccer team. And, I think about it when I was in Buenos Aires and I watched Boca Juniors and River Plate play, or one of the Brazilian clubs. And the talented kids now go play in Europe. Okay, the Sharks or the Stormers, they can be Boca Juniors or River Plate, just effectively a feeder. Yes, great locally supported franchises, a feeder of talent into a broader European market and then support the national team. Or, can we create a Liverpool in South Africa now that we are playing in a European competition? And that's the goal, and that's what I was speaking, to Sia about. And that's going to take making some real investments, big players, big branding opportunities, and just getting lots of business people involved to do it.
You said just in that comment around something's coming over the hill in rugby. I love the analogy you use around the snow globe and the fact that it's floating around at the minute. We're waiting for it to settle. Chatting to Simon Cohen, former Leicester CEO, been in the game for 10, 15 years or so. Mark Evans as well, Premiership CEO. I think I even saw Francois Pienaar mention something around a rugby reset. Now, for whatever reason, whether or not that's COVID, whether or not the salary cap, whether or not owners pumping in money, no return, the CVC money disappearing to keep the clubs afloat, grants that were given that now need to be paid back because of the COVID situation. What do you see coming around the corner then?
Okay. Look, I think all of those things. I think COVID was I probably wouldn't be at the Sharks if it wasn't for COVID. I think just the need for a capital infusion by rugby clubs around the world, drove some new owners and different people to step in. I think if you speak to people, at least when I travel with the Sharks and visit some of the Irish clubs, and I mean everyone was effectively saying something similar. Like there's we need to change the game. We need to get more business people involved. We need to bring more money to the table. We need to look at issues like a global calendar and different competitions. We need to grow it in places like the United States. The World Cup is coming in 2031, the Men's World Cup. So I think the combination of COVID and just maybe it's frustration at some of the clubs. I mean, everyone sees what's going on in other sporting codes. I mean, rugby's a massive sport and no one's making money. How can that be? The players are not making enough money. The owners are not making enough money. How can that be? It's the same size, 500 million fans, the same size as baseball with 500 million fans. It's a top 10 viewed, participated in game around the world. Why is in massive markets? In massive markets. It's massive in the United States. There's something like 2,500 clubs. As many participants and supporters and in other. If it's just you get enough business people around the table making business decisions in the interest of the sport, taking some risk, but it feels post COVID, it feels like the time is now because everyone seems to be saying the same thing, getting on the same page.
Old-fashioned? Do you think that that's a saying? Well, I can say it is. I think it is. I think that the upper echelons of the top table are so old-fashioned, and I say that not to sound derogatory or profiling people, but because it isn't moving. It hasn't moved for so many years.
Change is hard. I mean, we speak about it at the Sharks. Everyone is going back to the same playbook. Change is hard, so you have to bring new people around the table because all the old habits exist. It is old and stodgy. I think people are worried about, I was looking at, some images, from some of the older games when, a guy would do a try, I'm going to use the American terms, a touchdown, without any expression, run back to the halfway line and wait for the restart. No dancing, no singing, no
shushing the crowd.
It's so I'm saying it has so many old and traditional values, and that's okay. Those are great. It's of brotherhood and everything else. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't build on from that and create a product that's fun and engaging for a new demographic, which are mostly young people looking for alternative sports around the world. So I think we didn't mention private equity coming into CVC investing in some of the European leagues.
Smoke and mirrors or not? That why would CVC have invested in rugby for the reasons you've said? Because it's amazing. Or
Silver Lake into the All Blacks.
Yeah, well, All Blacks are a bit different, aren't they? Because they've got such the brand is bigger than the game. You could say.
Well, it is different, right? They're investing in the All Black brand, and CVC is effectively investing in the broadcast revenues at the league level. But it is, another business voice at the table trying to change rugby and make decisions that are business decisions and not the old-fashioned ones. So, perhaps it results in a global calendar. Perhaps it results in a World Cup of clubs. Things I think at the end of the day are good for the game.
I love hearing your energy about it. Obviously, you're going to have that because you've just invested in a club which is amazing. What does it need then? I know we're talking about growth. I believe there's huge growth, but change is needed. So for people listening to this, what do we? I love how I'm putting me and you in the Hey, if I had the money, I'd invest.
Um,
So what do we do? So if we had a blank piece of paper, if it was just a simple process, which it's not, there's so many other things. Like, how do we get it on to that next level?
Look, I think if we had a blank sheet of paper, I think firstly the game's now in Europe. Let's just give it up. As wonderful as the Crusaders are, one of the great rugby teams in the world, as wonderful as Super Rugby is, it's just so far away. I mean, it's so far away in such a small market. The games in Europe, a lot of the top players are going to be playing here. Let's focus on it. Let's build a global calendar. Let's get data and analytics. Let's get as much technology and buzz involved in the business. Let's get, there's just so much out there. I mean, I didn't realize until investing in the Sharks, and I'm learning every day. I'm reading. I'm learning. There's so much you can do with technology. So that's second. Third, we've got to invest in the clubs. I mean, it's some have salary caps, some don't. Each country is structured a different way. It forces you to sometimes wonder: does rugby need to be super leagued, like the soccer was trying to do? You call it football. Like soccer was trying. Does it need to be super leagued? There's you could make a decent argument for that being in the best interest, because you have strong clubs can really help the growth and development of the game. Right now, the focus is really on the international game, and so more communication, more collaboration. There are lots of owners now. There are lots of private owners of clubs, like in France, like in South Africa, the Bulls and Sharks, where if everyone just gets around the table and figures this out, I bet you we could come up with something, common sense. Rock Nation is an example of the type of people you can get involved in the game. Look, that's just, that's a little bit of thinking outside of the box. I think a good idea, trying to bring the American way of marketing, branding, thinking about the sport, trying to make it cooler for a different demographic. And I think we have to try and support and grow the game in the United States. It is, even if you sport number 7 here, you're still going to be, there's enough of the seed that's been planted in North America generally, United States and Canada, that, in the lead up to, the Rugby World Cup in 2031, you could really trigger the continued growth of the sport and women's rugby, which is, growing at a clip and is pretty massive in the United States. When I came to the United States, I couldn't find a soccer game on TV here. That was in the early 90s. Then the World Cup came. Major League Soccer grew steadily, and now people, paint their faces in Seattle in support of their team. So
I'm desperate to nod on a lot of these things, and I knew you were going to say it. Salary cap. Now, this is the big talking point across all media, what we speak about on the podcast, and the annoyance that I'm giving a lot of people of the old guard, people that I've spoken to on this show. So as an owner, this comes down to the appetite of success, and you'll be able to answer this now twofold, because how do you measure success, both from a business point of view and a success point of view? The Premiership now has a salary cap. The English Premiership has a salary cap. So therefore the squads are smaller, yet the demand's higher, and they're expected...
It's the same in South Africa, yeah.
Okay, so there's a salary cap in South Africa,
yes.
In the URC.
In South Africa, not for the people we're competing against.
So just reiterate that point, sorry.
The South African franchises are subject to a salary cap imposed by the South African Rugby Union.
And what is that? Can you share?
It's 65 million rand.
How much is 65 million rand in pounds? 3.3 million. No way. Right. Marco, if you're right, according to Siri, on the day we're recording in New York, 3.3 million, right, pounds. Do you know what Leinster's salary cap is?
No.
They don't have one.
I know that. Yes.
So they don't have a salary cap.
So that's my point, that the South African teams have a salary cap, but the other members of the URC do not.
Well, do you not think that is crazy in itself? Because if you want to try and get, I don't know what you pay players, I'm not expecting you to tell us.
You're not, they're going to say.
What?
They're going to say 2 South African teams made the final. I think the salary cap issue is a complicated one. And again, I'm thinking, the sports league that mints money is the National Football League. I mean, it's just astonishing. And I see it a little bit up close. It's just coordinated. Everything's coordinated by the league. Everyone's swimming in the same boat. Everyone benefits. They mint money, and they have salary caps. But they are reasonable ones. They're reasonable ones, and everyone has the same one. And I think that's my point. And
that is the point, Marco. That's the exact point, because if you're a club owner, right, and if that figure is right of 3, let's round it up to 4.
Fine,
right?
It is, $4 or $5 million, whatever it is. Yeah,
right. And you're expected to then come to Europe when the lads are buggered. Eben only wants to play 25, 26 games. He might, if you ask him, he might say 35. And you're expected to compete with 14, 15 million pounds, euros of the top 14, and a Leinster, which obviously the Bulls did with their salary cap, who haven't got a salary cap. That's not fair, is it? So that's not play on.
Exactly. Yes.
So do
we
you think
agree. How come we're always agreeing with each other?
Well, I've got a club owner here who sees the growth of the game, and in a way in which I think it needs to move forward, but it needs money to move forward. So it's easy speaking to you about that because you've invested and you understand and have a desire to invest in the game. Whereas not everyone else, a lot of other people are like, no, we can't, we need to batten down the hatches. We can't invest anymore. There needs to be a change. There needs to be a reset.
There is a little bit of small thinking, and what I try and encourage. You obviously have to be responsible, but there's a little bit of small thinking floating around rugby, and it requires thinking big. Like you have to invest in it to get a return. Like you can't. Let me say it again. You can't go back to the same playbook. If you button down the hatches, then we all lose.
Mm. So if they increased the salary cap and they said, I'll tell you what, across the board in Europe, and who are the decision makers, that's probably another question, because at some point someone needs to make it a fair playground.
Yeah.
Because I think the globalisation of the season, potentially a Super League like you've just mentioned, making it easier to consume for fans globally, at the minute it's...
Yeah.
I forgot about the Curry Cup that you mentioned.
It's so disjointed. If I ask, I go, you involved in Rugby Pass, right? I love seeing some of that content. It's fun. But if you ask someone sitting here, what are they reading when it comes to rugby? Someone sitting in the UK, what are they reading when it comes to rugby? Someone sitting in South Africa, we're all looking at different things. We're all in these disjointed, pocket of info, and in soccer there's something called One Football. I don't know if you know what One Football is, and it's actually owned by some of the clubs. It's a platform where you get everything.
It's like a pass, so like UFC pass, NFL pass, NBA pass. That. I'm going to cut you off because I'm passionate about it, then you can go into it. That, for me, is one of the biggest things that needs to happen in rugby.
Yeah,
a one-stop for all, wherever you live, and you get to consume all the content, all the podcasts, all the news, editorial if you still read a newspaper, but then it all points back to the game at the weekend. So everything we do, I say we in the media, points to the game at the weekend. To watch it. And
look, all these things have to happen all together, but that's the way you're going to grow the game. And if you combine it with, I hate to say it because of the old-fashioned people, but you combine it with gaming. I mean, that's the way my son, who's 23 years old, loves sports. It's through gaming, a little bit of betting, fantasy. We got to get with what's going on with live sports generally.
YouTube as well, and that's the reason, Marco, why I started this journey with Rugby Pass and the podcast, because I saw the opportunity in other sports, NFL. I mean, I watched Hard Knocks when I was playing at Leicester, when I was a kid on my old Arcos, right?
That's what people, I mean, how great is that?
I've never watched, I don't think I've ever watched an NFL game from start to finish,
Yeah.
but I love the NFL.
Yeah.
Like NBA as well. From what I see on social media, the clips coming up, the slam dunks, the athletes, the individual. I would say I'm an NBA fan. I don't think I've ever watched a game from start to finish.
It's all about content and people. Like my daughter's never watched a rugby game. I took her to meet, a few of the Sharks players, and now she wants to know. She follows them on social media, wants to know how they're doing, what's going on with them, wants to see the game, what's the score, how did this person do, it's all about, she made a personal connection, which fans can do, right? Fans can do if you give them the content. And now she's hooked. And that's what Hard Knocks does.
And it's about...
Rugby will have, that's that. Suddenly people are talking about F1 in this country.
Cost a bloody fortune, though. Drive to Survive didn't it? Everyone's talking about Drive to Survive. You should do this in rugby. And I've done a similar thing, Marco.
But it hasn't. But you can't. I mean, how much? Anyway.
It was a lot.
That was a lot. But you can do it you can certainly do it in South Africa.
Well,
for a fraction.
I was on that journey with Rugby Pass. I was in South Africa, and I spent some time where Sia grew up in Port Elizabeth. I went to Kaalisha in Cape Town. But I was amazed being in South Africa, and everyone talks about Sia Kolisi in the media in the UK. Everyone talks about Sia Kolisi. When I was on the ground, even and Sia's going to hate me for saying it, I was like, "Oh, who's your favourite player?" Thinking like we need you to say Sia, because I'm chatting to Sia when I get to Cape Town at the Sevens. Cheslin Colby, Cheslin Colby, Cheslin Colby, Cheslin Colby. And I think I know the reason why they're saying Cheslin Colby, because they're probably not watching rugby matches. They are watching clips. They are watching YouTube's greatest tries. They're watching sidesteps. They're watching speed. They're watching athleticism. Sia, not that you don't have any of these things.
Yeah.
And you talk about the growth of the game through content and through trying to make it exciting. Rugby can be quite a boring sport unless you're a purist like yourself who loves a scrum. I love a scrum. I love a maul. I enjoy the kicking game, the strategy. But in order to grow the game, you need the Cheslin Colbys, and you need to be able to showcase that.
I totally agree with you. But I'm going to argue the point about the scrum. With the people are jazzing it up with the velocity of the hit, and I just think maybe a few rule change tweaks. I just think 8 on 8 massive people smashing into each other can be something that's fun. But I totally agree with you.
With a content hat on and a data hat on,
yes,
I think how you improve things. That it's interesting you mentioned about your daughter and people who are not fans of rugby or haven't been a fan of rugby, and then they would meet an Ebenezer Beth, probably the biggest human they're ever going to see in their lives.
Yeah.
Or they watch a Cheslin Colby live or see a clip.
Yeah.
And it's such a unique sport. You mentioned the scrum there. I think similar to what they do in American sports. I love American sports. Never watched them start to finish, but I love the content that lives around them. You mentioned the data.
It's only like 8 minutes or something. Football game was 12 minutes, and it's 3 hours. Play it away.
I know. My attention span is small, even to watch the small clips. But I think if you had a data or stats-driven activation, so for example, here you go. Scrum happens. It's a 1 minute process, 1.5 minute, 2 minute process. If you've got all the players' heart rates up on the screen, how many tackles they've made, what they've gone through to that point to get to the scrum, what is their heart rate? What capacity are they competing at in that very moment? I think that's how you engage new audiences. A kicker takes a kick at goal. I know it's not a scrum. There'll be a penalty at the scrum probably. Kicker takes
Yeah,
a kick.
no,
His
awesome.
heart rate. How far has he ran?
Music to my ears.
So
Yeah, music. Yeah, that's. I mean, because kids also don't have the demographic, that we're appealing to. Also don't have the attention span. So you have to cater to it. And by the way, that little bit of time while they're setting up for the scrum, you can use it for some other piece of entertainment. It's we're putting on a show.
And you could bet what his heart rate is. How scared is he?
That's an important part of sports now. Let's not deny it.
In rugby, though, there's not an appetite for betting. I can't. I think, first try scorer,
Well, you'd have to create it. It's hard. It's the same with fantasy. Football's got so many breaks and so many different measurements that you could do. You'd have to try and create it.
I think there's an appetite for the betting thing. I'm just yet to be convinced. And I think the reason is, and there'll be a shift at some point, is the demographic of people that watch a rugby game. I was at the football. I went to watch Arsenal, Man United with my lad. Well, he wanted to see Ronaldo. He was an Arsenal fan. He's now a Man United fan because of Ronaldo. And you see the way that people, even in the ground, are consuming the match through their phone, TikTok, selfies, betting, live in the stadium on the match that they're watching.
Yeah,
that's a joined-up approach.
Yeah,
and I just think in rugby, there's an old school element which I like. We're losing slightly, but I think the growth of the game potentially needs to embody all these things that we're talking about.
No, absolutely.
Ches and Colby, I thought it was very weird, but in a good way, and the top 14 would have been raging that he's walked out in Cape Town ahead of the final with the trophy, before the presentation. Surely the top 14. I mean, I know he's a legend in South Africa. So you mentioned the appetite to get someone back, but if your salary cap is as low as we've just mentioned, how do you entice one of the most expensive players to come home to South Africa, grow the game, grow the URC, and take him away from $1 million? I don't know how much you get paid. Let's just say £1 million. I think he's a £1 million player in a Toulon.
Look, it's hard. I mean, it's hard, and he, he's also a wing, or a fullback, and let's face it, right? Just in terms of how you constructing a team and where you're going to invest, for the future. But a lot of South African rugby players want to be in South Africa, and so maybe there's a way of constructing something for them that's not as much as what they make there, more performance based on how they play, how many games they play for the club, where you can get on an after-tax basis close. But it is hard because of the salary cap. It has to be the right club in South Africa.
I'll ask you outright then. Do you think this salary cap should be lifted across the board?
Yes, for sure. We want if we are going to create the Liverpools as opposed to the Boca Juniors, we have to be in South Africa. And now we're playing in Europe, a much mature market of exposure. We have to be able to compete on an equal footing with those clubs. We've got a lot of talent, so we clearly had two teams make the final.
Well, I always say, I said to him, basically, I affected Leicester winning the Premiership because my mate who coaches there, he's like, "What do you think?" I says, "Mate, you need to get over the gain line." And he says, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Mate, sign some South Africans." Next thing, Hanno Liedenberg turns up, Jasper Wiese, just to name two.
Yeah.
My point being, jokes aside, I think South Africa now, ahead of the likes of Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, obviously New Zealand, but they're in a micro kind of life down there. A lot of them stay there or go to Japan. But I think South African rugby players, if I owned a team, wherever it be in the world, I would sign the majority as South African, robust, humble. I spoke to Alex Sanderson at Sale.
Yeah.
You're not the Sharks. At Sale. He said the same thing. He said they're so easy to manage, whether that be the way that they see the world, religion, family, work ethic, and they're robust. They're just built differently.
Look, we are now tapping into, at the Sharks, a lot of players coming in from the Eastern Cape, and watch what happens in 5 years, 10 years time. Kids are running around more so than ever in all parts of South Africa, all communities in South Africa. They have the role models, the Chaslins, the Sears. What happened. Not only is it, that humbleness and work ethic, but you made the comment about South African loving forward play. I haven't seen, I was either in Ireland or Scotland when the Springboks were playing New Zealand, and I think it was Lucanio M passed the ball behind his back to Spoon Corsair. It was right at the beginning of the game, and we scored against New Zealand. Like it was, the pizzazz, the flair, the entertainment coming out of the South African rugby player and I've been watching the game for a long time there, is different. It's different now because we're bringing together, all parts of South Africa and what everyone has to bring into the game.
Rassie, love to chat about him. And I know what you're going to say, not by your tweet, and we can talk about that, but more around his character and his ability to engage a nation, I'd say. I think a lot of people would agree with us in terms of he seems like don't know him personally, seems like a very engaging bloke. You see the clips on social media, not that that's often a reflection necessarily of how they truly are, but I think we get a gauge on the love that the players have for him and the build-up to the final game where he spoke about the players and where they came from, and Chasing the Sun was the name of the documentary that came out. And just watching that alone and his engagement in his team and his players was enough for me to be like, this guy gets it. He's real. But your relationship with Rassie, is there a relationship because you came out and stuck up for him when World Rugby wanted to take him over the coals?
There isn't a relationship, and I love the guy, and I love him because I think rugby needs the Rassies, the people who think out of the box, and that's what he is. I mean, and I can see at the Sharks players, the way they talk about them. Look, it can be a problem, right? It's gonna be hard to ever match up to a Rassie. In South African, coaching circles, but he's an out-of-the-box thinker, And I remember, watching him when I think he was putting lights on the top of the Free State Stadium, sending out signals, to the players. It's that, and experimenting along the way and becoming the person he is now. He clearly has, a massive following, among the players. He clearly has an incredible rugby brain, and so. And help, to win that cup with a team that where everyone contributed something along the way. I mean, it was just a wonderful rugby team that he had constructed, and so I can't help but love the guy.
Anyone else that impresses you in the game that you've seen? It could be from an administrative or a CEO or a club that you would say, they're leading the charge. Not on all fronts, no team's ever going to do that, but is there anyone that you kind of base your journey or interest, or just anyone that impresses you where you're like, you know what, they get it?
Look, I mean, a lot of people do impress me around the game. A lot of the players are. I'm impressed. I thought I would go into it, trying to be a mentor to some of these young men, but it's amazing how much you get back. I mean, it's the traditional relationship. Mentors get out of mentoring as much as the mentees get. So, a lot of the South African players are really wonderful. But I am, through my friendship with Dominic Sylvester, who's the now controlling shareholder at Saracens, learning a lot, from him, from Francois, from that organization about how to. You talked about success, how to create a sustainable culture and winning a culture and bring people along the way. I mean, I went with Dominic to see Saracens play recently. It was one of the first times I'd been to Stoneaxe, and it just was truly wonderful. You know, we went in the change room afterwards, got to meet some of the players, and so we've actually had our CEO come up and spend some time there. Our new coach, or rather director of rugby, Neil Powell, just spent a week there, just learning, listening to the way they did it. But it's enormously impressive organization. Look, we all have to grow, and I think we can also give some of the things that we've been speaking about, to Saracens. So there's an interest in collaborating more and maybe even collaborating, trying to do something in the United States, which was one of my original ideas. But if you're asking me, what I find impressive in rugby, it's learning from, the Saracens experience.
Oh God, you're going to upset a few people. I was at Saracens for 3 years, so I don't want to just sit here and nod and agree, but I'm going to sit here and nod and agree. Because one thing, and whether or not this is genuine or not, and then you...
By the way, I don't mind upsetting people.
Oh, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But when I was there, they spoke about measuring success, and maybe this will come to giving us an answer, how you as an owner measure success, be it wanting to make a return, but also on the field with a very, very limited salary cap.
Look, I'm hopeful we're going to lift that cap, and I think everyone's going to be aligned on doing that. So, hopefully we'll be more competitive and not make it about that. But
what about the clubs that will die when that happens? And maybe this is part of the reset that people are speaking about, unfortunately. Like Worcester in the Premiership have struggled to pay players. Newcastle aren't investing. These are teams that are bottom of the league in and around there. Bath are a bit of an anomaly, really. They've got an owner that seems willing to pump cash in. Simon Orange, who owns Sale, doesn't want to. Like, we had a Twitter debate. We went back and forth. It was a public debate around him not wanting to just open up his checkbook. Does it come on to bringing in...
Didn't he do so for a whole lot of South Africans?
I'm not going to comment. I did wonder how Faf de Klerk and Lou Diega, Manu Tuolangi turned up, but maybe he doesn't want to anymore. But then does that open the door, from your point of view, like football, and they've got Qatar money and Saudi money, I don't know what kind of money that is. Does that open the door for these people to come in and buy a rugby club?
Yeah, no, it certainly does. But look, I just worked on that Chelsea soccer deal, and I represented a firm called Clear Lake Capital, which is a private equity firm. Two really, really wonderful owners, Jose Feliciano, Bedad Begali, who set up the firm. I helped them at the time, 2006. They've got, $72 billion under management, and they're good people. And they did it with, as part of a consortium with a guy by the name of Todd Bowley. Never have invested in soccer before, investing in the brand, see the potential to grow it. Rugby has to be open to a new and different type. I'm not going to comment on the sovereign wealths. I think that's a different type of, animal or owner. I know some Japanese clubs are owned by companies.
Yeah, it's probably a bad way to put it, because you're not a Qatar or Saudi owner. Neither is Dominic. So probably
correct.
a bad way to put. But you see that in football. My point being.
Yeah. Look, I think all options have to be considered. I mean, in the NFL, they, because I've helped with a couple of bids for NFL teams. I mean, they really put the owners through the ringer. You can bring other money to the table, like in the NBA as well. But you have to have one, controlling individual. So you can, have one controlling individual who deals with the club and who's the type of person. These are clubs, is the type of person that the fans and the league are comfortable with. But you can bring other money along with them.
And then success for you and your team. Is it
I
winning
think,
something?
I think about that. Of course it is. But not just winning on a consistent basis. Creating a culture. Having people in Durban walk taller because they've got a great team now. Being in it for the long term. Seeing some of these kids grow and then have careers around rugby and around the franchise. It's definitely, I'd like it for it to be a good investment, and I've asked people to join me in this, and I want them to see it as a good investment, but I also want to get more out of it. So success for me is winning on a consistent and sustainable. I'm just competitive, like you are, and we want to win.
And are you going to be making decisions for the team? So, I mean, how do you review the start, the first year? Seeing two South African teams in the final, did it annoy you or not?
I didn't like it. I'll be totally honest. I didn't like it. I think we have the best business. We have a good CEO. We have good coaching setup. Look, a lot of the things that we were doing are only happening next season. We really only bought, Sia and Bongi, notwithstanding what was portrayed in the South African press. We only bought Sia and Bongi, to the club. We have a lot of young players in key positions. Some of our acquisitions, Durban, Rohan Janssen van Rensburg, Vincent Tajuka, are only from next season. Neil Powell only joins, in September. So some of the things that we announced are only happening next season. So, we spent, COVID, this first season effectively building our business. We got close. Obviously don't like not winning, and you always have to feel that. But the hope is we're putting the necessary pieces in place to win and to create a consistent culture that allows us to win and brings up players through the system.
An essay in the Six Nations. I know what you're going to. You definitely want that. Surely.
Yeah,
you want that to happen.
Of course, I want it to happen.
Will it?
I'm not close enough to know, but you would think it's the natural, and maybe when the South African teams, I mean, I hate to use this analogy, but get more involved in, more pregnant, with the European game, and people see that, and it becomes a success. Perhaps the Six Nations will follow, but I'm more focused on the club game. I think we can be doing a lot more at the club level, in the way that soccer does, right? The clubs and the international teams are basically, right? They're basically consistent exposure in terms of quality of play and everything else.
Well, from what I hear, if you've got a seat at the table of the EPCR, then that's a good table to be at.
Yeah.
Apparently, in terms of decision making, I've not got to the point of understanding the ecosystem of rugby. World Rugby's taken a bit of shit, but apparently, I think they just own the sofas. I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else that they can do. Obviously, Sanzar, who have a big say. EPCR, Six Nations.
I think we need to restructure. Like if there's one strategic priority that we have, we will not get it right until we have a better relationship with the South African Rugby Union. A relationship of partnership and transparency. We effectively need to be a shareholder, and we're not right now. What the clubs receive is a discretionary distribution. We should be a shareholder, effectively an indirect shareholder of the URC. If we do that, everyone's going to be aligned. So we aligned, to increase the coffers of SARU and not just our own. So there also needs to be in the various countries some restructuring, and everyone needs to be focused on it. Otherwise, we will not get it right at the club level.
But MLR, there's an appetite for it because it's the land of the free and the home of the brave and American sports. I've watched the MLR. It was a couple of years ago, so I don't want to be too harsh, and it weren't great, the standard. But for me, personally, superficially, I keep using that word, I think in order for rugby to grow, it needs to grow in America. People spoke about Japan, love Japan, got mates who played out there, but we're talking a completely different culture, completely different language. The way of doing things is alien to anything we've seen in Europe, and you've agreed that Europe is the growth, is the sustainable, is the big rugby market. But how important do you think, for the value of the game to go through the roof, does the MLR become?
I think it's hugely important in the build up to the men's World Cup here. Look, I think you watched it. You said 2 or 3 years ago, so watch it again today. I recently went to a Rugby United game with the CEO of the Sharks, who came through here, so he could come and see some of the American sports. And we went to see a Rugby United game. We know those people a little. We know the Old Glory people a little. That's where the Beast played when he was here.
Washington, yeah.
The Washington team. The Scottish Rugby Union, I think, have an interest in the Washington team, and the New Zealanders are involved in Rugby United. I was surprised. The standard is a lot better, and there are a lot of foreign players now playing it. Now they still got to work out a lot of kinks. The stadium they were playing in was not great. The fans are still, something like 5,000 fans that, the game we went to. But I think they've got a good base to start on. And there's a lot of interest. I had a call with a guy who was interested in the Austin team, and he was talking about setting up 10 franchises, he's an Englishman, including one in Mexico City. They've got a good group of people, business people around them. I think the model is good by starting small and trying to grow it, and they seem to be in the right places. So, look, it's early days. I'm not close enough to it. I'm still focused on the Sharks and Europe, our collaboration with Saracens. But, my dream, if I have a vision, it's that we then jointly try and do something here, because this market is massively important. A lot of the young rugby players are very, very interested in it. You can create opportunities at the beginning of their careers, end of their careers. And so my instinct is we have to do something here. And, bringing some of the American sports people, like Rock Nation, to the table, maybe what we need to move the needle.
The old saying, cheesy saying, dream big. And Marco, you're dreaming big, but you're actually living it as well. And it's been refreshing speaking to you. And I feel energised after that, because I think for the growth of the game, people listening to you, investing in the game, and potentially being close to the top table in Europe as the South African teams potentially make that transition to the top is only going to benefit the game of rugby. So I really appreciate that. In your home city of New York.
Thank you.